course, that song means. We're joined by our book reviewer, Wayne Button. Good morning.
Good morning, Janice. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. You?
Not bad. Back to work, but still trying to find time to read books for you guys.
Well, we really appreciate that, Wayne. And we know that you are on a nonfiction roll right now. You've read 3 nonfiction books in a row. This week, you picked The Inconvenient Indian, which was the CBC Canada Reads pick from 2015. And we actually have a clip from the author Thomas King. Now, that's back in the spring of 2015 when Stephen Harper was still Prime Minister of Canada.
It took me about 6 years, I guess, to actually do the writing, and probably most of my lifetime for the rest of the stuff. But one of the things that I didn't realize to the extent that I wrote in the book is that these patterns, these large patterns, have just been repeating themselves. We haven't gotten any smarter. We haven't learned anything. What happened in the 1800s and in the 1950s, we're repeating right today, this very day, with the Harper government and many of the pieces of legislation that they've brought out. So we haven't learned anything.
I wonder if Thomas King would think things have changed a bit now, 5 years later. Wayne, can you tell us a little bit about the book that Thomas King wrote?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing book. I tell people if there's one book they're going to read on, Native history, this is it. Because most history books sometimes can be boring, but this is actually, at times, even comical. He makes you laugh out loud and gives some amazing stories, but explains things extremely well and thorough. In fact, he even starts off the book talking about the title, and he struggled with the title for a long time. And his wife is actually an historian, and his son at the time, was studying a master's in history, and both of them told him, don't put history in the title of the book, because if you put history in the title of the book, you're going to have footnotes and you're going to have references, and it has to be completely historically accurate as opposed to more of an opinion piece. So I'm glad he didn't do that, because he made the book extremely interesting, covering everything about not just Canadian, but USA, the whole North American Native history, going anywhere from topics involving movie culture and Native people to land trees, right up to all the massacres that occurred. He explains everything in great detail, but as I say, in a very non-boring, analytical way, and makes it extremely interesting. It's so good that I actually posted this on social media yesterday, and someone wrote me and said that she had to read it for her Native law class in law school. So it was actually a must-read that the students had to do. So, yeah, I got to say, it's a great book. He makes it extremely interesting, and you can understand why it took him 6 years to write it.
Why did you choose to read this book?
I mean, a couple of reasons. This kept popping up. A lot of political podcasts I listen to, they recommended this book. Sometimes online I'll look for different books in terms of lists, like what's the top 10 scariest books or something like that. And I kept looking at, what are the top 10, books to read about Native culture. And this kept coming up. And then I seen that it won some awards, and you guys even had it in Canada Reads. So I said, well, maybe this is a book for me to read. So I bought it. But I wanted to read it this week, particularly because I try to read some things for you guys, related to the times, and Sunday is actually Aboriginal People Day, so I figured to commemorate that, I wanted to read something related to Native culture, so I figured this week was as good as any to read it.
Absolutely. Now, there were a lot of anecdotes, I understand, in the book. Were there any that stuck with you?
Yeah, the funniest one that stuck with me is he said he was living in New Zealand on a 1-month work term, and he actually ended up staying for over a year. So immigration called him and was like, you're overstaying, your work visa. And he said, well, I like New Zealand. I think I'm going to stay for a while if you guys let me. So he said, okay, well, let's see if we can renew your visa. So he said, give me some statistics. So he asked for his age, his date, his weight, stuff like that. And then he said that he was Indian. And the guy said, well, we can't really, let you in New Zealand if you're an Indian. He said, why is that? He said, well, we get thousands and thousands and thousands of visa applications from Indians every year. So he said he's sitting there and he's thinking, he's like, really? Like, I know there's lots of Indians in North America, but, like, they're all trying to come to New Zealand. This doesn't make any sense. He goes, where are these Indians that you're referring to? He said, New Delhi. And he said, no, I'm not that type of Indian. I'm from North America. I'm a North American Indian. And then the immigration officer said, oh, you mean like cowboy Indians? And he said, yeah, I mean like cowboy Indians. So,
wow.
yeah, so it was a funny story. Like, he doesn't get upset over those things. He adds humor to it. As he said in the interview with you guys a couple of years ago, he said that's all he can do sometimes at some of these things is just laugh.
So who would you recommend read this book, Wayne?
Anybody really who wants to, learn more about Native culture and Native history, this is probably the top of the list of one that I'd recommend to them. Like I said, anybody may be interested in law school, because he does do a chapter on land treaties, and he dumbs it down really well to explain how land treaties and such work. So anybody like that, I would strongly recommend this book too.
Well, we really appreciate you telling us more about it this morning. Thank you.
No problem, Janice. You have a good week.
You as well. And that's this week's book suggestion from Wayne Button. It's The Inconvenient Indian by Thomas King.